Can you spot the bug before it breaks a real project? In this video, you will solve 10 practical JavaScript debugging challenges and learn the patterns behind the most common errors. Pause at each task, try your solution, and then follow the full explanation. We start with a runtime error you will see constantly in real JavaScript projects. The key is to read the missing name in the error message and trace it back to the code. When a checkout total disappears, an undefined variable is often the reason. Here we declare total, but the output line accidentally uses total amount. Now we run the script and inspect the runtime error. Node tells us exactly which identifier it cannot find. Let's break down why this fails. JavaScript looks for total amount in the current scope, but only total exists, so execution stops before the price can be displayed. Now we fix the typo by using the declared total variable in the template string. We run the corrected script again, and the checkout total appears as expected. Now we are looking at the best prevention. Use consistent names and let a linter check undefined variables before runtime. Apply this whenever you add or rename values that are used across several lines of code. Try a quick variation yourself. Rename total to order total, update the output line, and confirm that the terminal still prints the same amount. Configuration data often comes from files, forms, or APIs, so it cannot be assumed to be valid. This challenge makes malformed JSON fail safely instead of crashing the whole script. Configuration input is external data, and one trailing comma should not crash your startup process. We place JSON parse inside try and catch, then run one valid string and one malformed string to see both paths. The valid config prints its project name, while the bad config gets a clear validation message. Let's break down what happened. JSON parse returns an object for valid text, but it throws for the trailing comma, and catch converts that technical failure into a message the user can act on. Now we are showing the better production approach. Treat every file, form value, and API response as untrusted input. Use a clear message for the user, and keep raw parser details for developer logs when you need to debug. Try extending this parser with one more validation step. After parsing succeeds, check whether project exists and print a helpful message if that required setting is missing. Values from forms often look like numbers while still being strings. This challenge shows why that small detail can quietly produce the wrong price. A checkout form sends two prices that look correct, but they are strings. We add them directly and run the script instead of a real total. JavaScript joins the text together. This is a common type coercion bug because the code runs without throwing an error. Let's break down the result. When both operands of plus are strings, JavaScript treats plus as text concatenation, so 19.99 and 5.00 become one long string. Now we fix the calculation at the boundary where these form values enter the program. We convert each price with number, reject non-finite values, then run the calculation again to get a correctly formatted total. Now we are looking at the safest habit. Convert and validate values as soon as they enter your system. Apply it to form fields, query parameters, CSV rows, and API data before those values affect money or calculations. Try one variation now. Replace one price with a string free and observe the validation failure. Then decide whether your user interface should show an inline error or block checkout. Searches do not always return a result, especially in user-facing interfaces. The next task prevents an empty result list from turning into a runtime crash. A user search can return no matches, and that is a normal outcome rather than an exceptional one. Here we search for Noah in a list that only contains Maya, then run the script and see what happens when we access the first result anyway. The terminal shows that email is being read from undefined. Let's break down why this throws. Filter returns an empty array, so matches at index 0 is undefined, and JavaScript cannot read an email property from that missing value. Now we fix the search result handling with a length check before accessing index 0. We run the guarded version, and an empty search now produces a clear message instead of a type error. Now we are showing the defensive pattern to use before indexed access. Confirm that the collection actually has an item. Apply this to search results, API lists, database rows, and any optional collection in your UI. Try changing the requested name from Noah to Maya. The same guarded code should take the other branch and print Maya's email, proving that it handles both outcomes. Asynchronous code can look successful while work is still happening in the background. This final challenge puts the logs back in the right order and leaves room to recover from failures. A report is not ready just because we have started loading it. In this version, main calls the asynchronous function without await, then immediately logs success. Now we run it and watch the order of the terminal messages. Success appears before the report has actually loaded. Let's break down the ordering problem. Load report returns a promise immediately, while its timer finishes later. So JavaScript continues to the success log without waiting for the result. Now we make main asynchronous and await load report before announcing success. We also add catch, so a rejected request has a recovery path. When we run the successful request, the report loads first and success follows it. Now we are looking at the reliable async pattern. Await work where your application needs its result. Then catch failures where it can make a recovery decision. Use this in command handlers, startup flows, route handlers, and other orchestration code. Try the failure path next. Change the awaited call to load report true and confirm that the catch block prints the service error instead of a misleading success message. Next, we are handling failures from asynchronous work. These are the errors that often appear only after a real service becomes unavailable. Inventory lookups fail in real systems, and an await without a local catch can leave a rejected promise behind. Let's write the smallest failing stock check, fetch stock rejects, while check stock keeps waiting for a result. Now we run it, and the global rejection hook shows the failure that monitoring would see. Let's break down why this failed. Await converts a rejected promise into a thrown error at that line. Because checkstock has no catch block, it never gets a chance to decide what the order processor should do next. Now let's fix the flow locally. We wrap the await in try catch, log the service message, and return unknown when stock cannot be confirmed. Now we run the script again, and the caller receives a predictable result. Let's break down the final output. The catch block preserves the real service message for debugging, then returns unknown, instead of inventing a stock quantity that makes the failure visible without crashing this part of the workflow. As a best practice, handle expected service failures near the request because that is where you have the most useful context. Use a fallback only when the application can safely continue, and make that fallback explicit. For a quick practice, make fetch stock succeed for one SKU and fail for another. Keep the same catch block, then verify that only the failed lookup prints unknown. Now we will make errors describe the business problem instead of sounding generic. Clear error types make payment failures much easier to route and diagnose. A $0 order is not the same problem as a payment provider outage. Let's create invalid order error, then throw it when the order total is 0 or negative. Now we run the validation and see the domain-specific error in the terminal. Let's break down why this is more useful than a generic error. The subclass gives the failure a stable identity, and inline lets the catch block choose the correct response. The message still tells us exactly which rule the order broke. As a best practice, use custom errors when a failure has a meaningful business response. When you wrap a lower-level error, preserve its cause so the original technical detail is still available during investigation. For practice, add a payment provider error to the same workflow. Throw it for a simulated provider timeout, catch it separately, and display a retry-friendly message instead of the invalid order message. This challenge is about an event bug that gets worse each time a screen is initialized. The visible symptom is simple: one click causes several submissions. This dashboard runs its initialization 3 times, which is common after refreshes or remounts. Let's attach the same submit handler on every initialization and then emit 1 click. Now we run it, and 1 click unexpectedly submits 3 requests. Let's break down the duplicate output. Every call to on adds another listener, even when the function is the same. The emitter does exactly what we ask and calls all 3 listener registrations. Now we fix the registration. Because submit request is a stable function reference, remove listener can remove the old subscription before we add the current one. Now we run the same 3 initializations again, and 1 click produces 1 request. As a best practice, treat every event subscription as something that needs a cleanup path. Keep the handler in a stable variable or function declaration because anonymous replacements cannot be removed reliably. For practice, create a destroy dashboard function that removes this listener. Call it before one final simulated click, and confirm that the terminal stays quiet after the dashboard is destroyed. Now we are debugging a mutation that silently corrupts later reports. The important clue is that a function changes data it did not create. A reporting screen may still need the original prices after a discount preview is calculated. Let's pass the cart into a function that directly rewrites each item price. Now we run it and see that the supposed original cart has already been corrupted. Let's break down the cause. The cart parameter is a reference to original cart, and each item inside its array is also shared. Changing item pot prices does not create a discounted copy. It changes the source data itself. Now we fix the mutation with immutable updates. Object spread creates a new cart, and map creates a new item object for every price we change. Now we run it and compare the untouched original with a separate discounted result. As a best practice, return new data from transformation functions instead of changing their inputs. This is especially valuable when the same object can be used by reports, UI state, caches, or later calculations. For practice, add quantities to both cart items and compute the discounted cart total. Keep the original cart unchanged, then confirm that both prices and quantities still match the initial values. For the final challenge, we are tracing a failed database write that was hidden by an empty catch block. Production code needs to report both the failed record and the final import outcome. A nightly import can look healthy even when one database write has failed. Let's simulate 3 saves. Swallow the failure for rec2 with an empty catch block, and then print a success message. Now we run it and see the misleading result. Let's break down the failure in this design. The catch block receives the database timeout and then discards it, so the loop continues with no evidence that rec2 was lost. The final success message is therefore false. Now we fix the import with useful diagnostics. The record level catch logs the record ID and error message, then stores the failed ID. After the loop, the import throws a summary to main. Now we run it and get both the specific failure and the final count. Let's break down the repaired flow. We keep processing the remaining records, but we do not hide the failure. The log identifies rec2 and the final summary reaches the script boundary. Setting the exit code also tells automation that this import did not fully succeed. As a best practice, never leave a catch block empty. Recover deliberately, rethrow the problem, or log enough context to investigate it. For batch jobs, always publish a truthful success or failure summary. For practice, make 2 records fail instead of 1. Collect both IDs and update the final summary so an operator can see the count and the exact records that need a retry. You now have 10 useful debugging patterns to apply in your JavaScript projects and interviews. If this helped you level up, like the video, subscribe to Dev Level Up, and tell me which JavaScript topic you want to practice next.